Welcome back to Hack and Craft, the place where creative ideas come to life. Today, we're going to build a handmade soldering iron using just a few simple tools. Let's get started, shall we? Right here, I've got a safety pin ready to go. Now, let's see what I'm going to do with it. This is going to be interesting, so stick around. I've also prepared a bolt and a nut right here. Now, I'm going to slide the bolt through the round hole in the safety pin. But first, we need to remove the nut, of course. Let's get that off and move on to the next step. This is where things start to take shape. So keep watching. All right, now I'm going to slide the bolt through the round hole in the safety pin. Once the head of the bolt fits through, I just need to twist it in place. And that's it. Pretty simple so far, right? Have you ever thought a regular safety pin could be used this way? Stick around, because it only gets more creative from here. Now I'm going to screw the nut back on to secure the bolt tightly to the safety pin. This will lock everything in place and keep it from shifting. I'm also going to use a pair of pliers to tighten up, just to make sure everything is nice and secure. It's always a good idea to give things an extra twist for stability, especially if you plan to actually use what you're building. All done. Let's move on to the next step. Right here, I've got a small piece of electrical wire. I'm going to use a pair of pliers to strip off the plastic insulation at the end of the wire. We just need to reveal that copper core inside. It's the part that really does all the work. Next, I'm going to twist the exposed copper strands together. This helps keep the wire neat and makes it easier to work with later. Plus, it improves the connection too. Now I'm going to thread the twisted copper wire through the tip of the safety pin. If you look closely, there's a little groove right at the end. Just press the wire into that groove and twist it tightly to secure it in place. Neat little trick, right? Sometimes the smallest design features can be super useful if you know how to take advantage of them. Keep watching. This build is coming together nicely. Let's grab the pliers again and give it a good twist. Make sure that copper wire is tightly secured. You want to be firm enough that it won't come loose, even if it gets tugged a bit. Little by little, this thing is starting to look pretty solid, right? What do you think it's going to turn into? Take a guess in the comments. Before we move on to the next step, I want to show you something interesting. I've got a roll of toilet paper right here, but don't worry, I'm only going to use one single sheet. That's more than enough for what we need. Ever thought toilet paper could be part of a DIY project? Stick around and see how it fits in. I'm going to crumple it up into a tight little ball. Next, I'll place it onto a small wooden board and drip some glue onto it. Make sure to use plenty of glue so you can really see the difference it makes. It's amazing how something as simple as a piece of toilet paper can become part of a sturdy DIY project, isn't it? Have you ever used unexpected materials like this before? The glue will dry really quickly. Let's check it out. What do you think? It's super hard now, isn't it? All right, now let's continue building our soldering tool. I've got a small plastic tube right here, which will serve as a handle for our soldering iron. Back to the electrical wire connected to the safety pin. I'm going to thread it through this plastic tube right here. This will help keep everything neat and give us a comfortable handle to hold while using our homemade soldering tool. It's a bit loose. How can we fix that? Don't worry, I've got an idea. I'm going to use a piece of toilet paper to help secure it. Sometimes, the simplest materials make the biggest difference. Want to see how I'll make it snug and sturdy? Stick around. I'm folding the toilet paper lengthwise several times to make it thicker and stronger. This will help fill the gap and keep the wire nice and snug inside the plastic tube. This small piece is just right. I'm going to wrap it tightly around the connection between the wire and the safety pin. Make sure to wrap it snugly, but don't pull too hard because toilet paper tears really easily. It's all about finding that perfect balance. Have you ever had to do delicate wrapping like this in your own projects? After wrapping it all up, we'll slide the whole thing into the handle. Try to push it all the way inside the plastic tube so it fits nice and snug. This will keep everything secure and give us a solid grip. Have you ever had to fit something tricky like this into a tight space? It can be a bit tricky, but totally worth it. All done. Now I'm going to drizzle plenty of glue into the handle. Don't be shy. Use enough to really soak it in. I've already tested this earlier, so I know the result will be strong and secure. Sometimes, a good amount of glue is just what you need to keep everything firmly in place. Ever had a project where glue made all the difference? However, to make it even more secure, I'm going to add a bit of baking soda. Baking soda is an excellent adhesive booster. When combined with glue, it really helps everything bond tightly. It's a handy little trick that can take your DIY projects to the next level. Have you ever tried using baking soda this way before? Now, all we have to do is drip glue over the entire surface. Make sure to cover it thoroughly so the glue and baking soda can work together perfectly. This will create a strong, solid bond that holds everything tightly in place. Have you ever sealed something with glue like this? It's surprisingly effective. While we wait for the glue to dry, let's move on to the next steps. At this end of the electrical wire, I'll strip off the plastic insulation. Then I'll twist the exposed copper strands together and fold them over. This will prepare the wire for a solid connection later on. Here I have a metal clamp, and first, I'm going to remove the rubber cover from it. Next, I'll thread the electrical wire through the rubber sleeve. Then, I carefully place the copper wire into the small groove on the clamp. Gotta be a bit delicate with this part. It's all about precision to make sure everything fits just right. Now, I'm going to use pliers to firmly squeeze that groove, securing the copper wire in place. Make sure to clamp it tightly so the wire doesn't move or slip out. A strong grip here is key to a reliable connection. Have you ever had to use pliers to secure wires or small parts before? It really makes a difference. That looks good. Now, slide the rubber sleeve back onto the metal clamp. Almost done with this part. Alright, here I have a battery tray. Let's pick out an old battery to work with. Some of these look pretty new. Ah! Here's one with signs of rust on both terminals. That's the one I'll choose. Now, I'm going to use a knife to carefully remove the plastic wrapping from a battery. This will give me full access to the battery casing for the next steps. You have to be cautious here to avoid damaging the battery inside. Have you ever peeled off a battery's plastic wrap like this before? It's a delicate task. Next up is the battery casing. I'll use a pair of pliers with a pointed tip to tear it open. First, gently pry a bit, then give it a strong pull to tear it away. Using the right tool makes this much easier and safer. Have you ever had to open a battery casing like this before? It can be a bit tricky. Here it is, just what I needed. Now, I'll remove the positive terminal carefully. There it is, the battery core, a crucial component for what I'm making. Without this part, the battery simply wouldn't work. Have you ever seen the inside of a battery like this before? It's pretty fascinating. Make sure to clean it thoroughly. It's pretty rusty and dirty right now. A good cleaning helps ensure better performance and a solid connection later on. Have you ever dealt with rusty parts before? It can take some effort to get them looking clean again. That's all set. Oh man, just look at my hands. They're all dirty now. Next, I'll secure the battery core into a drill. Then use sandpaper to carefully sand down its tip. Ever gotten your hands dirty doing a project like this? It's all part of the fun, right? And that's it. Nice and round like this means it's just right. Now, moving on to the next step. I have a cable clamp here, and I'm going to use it to connect the battery core to the bolt, creating the soldering tip. This connection is key to turning our parts into a working soldering tool. I'm going to insert the battery core into the cable clamp now. Have you ever used a cable clamp like this before? They're super handy for making secure connections. After that, I'll tighten this screw to secure it firmly in place. Be sure to use a screwdriver to really fasten it tight. You don't want it coming loose later. All done. Now I'll connect the bolt to the other end of the cable clamp. Just like with the battery core, I'll insert the bolt and then tighten it up nice and secure. Making sure both ends are firmly fastened is crucial for a solid connection. Do you enjoy these little hands-on steps? They really make the project come together. So, I just finished assembling the soldering iron, and honestly, it looks pretty good overall, don't you think? Now, let's give it a test and see how well it works. I've got a battery pack ready here. Are you excited to see if it's going to heat up properly? Let's find out together. alongside the soldering iron I just finished. There's also a wire with metal clips attached at both ends. I'm going to connect one end of the red wire and the soldering irons wired to the two terminals of the battery pack. When the soldering iron and the clip on the red wire touch each other, or both touch the same conductive material, an electric current flows through, generating heat. I prepared a piece of solder wire right here, and I'm going to clamp it using the clip on the red wire. Have you ever tried handling solder wire like this before? It's pretty satisfying to see it melt so smoothly once it heats up. And here we go, let's start soldering. See that? The solder wire is melting and flowing perfectly already. Isn't it cool to watch in action? Have any of you tried soldering before? How did it go for you? Next up, I'm going to try soldering these two razor blades together. First, I'll clamp one blade firmly in place, then lay the second blade right on top of it. Now, all that's left is to solder them together and make a solid connection. Pretty neat, right? Have you ever tried welding or soldering metal pieces like this before? Do you see the smoke rising? That's a clear sign our soldering iron is working really well. It's heating up just right to melt the solder and join these blades perfectly. Isn't it cool to watch this process live? What would you want to try welding or soldering yourself? Exactly. Those two blades are now firmly joined together. It's amazing how a bit of heat and solder can make such a strong connection, isn't it? All right, now let's move on to the final test. I have two electrical wires here, and I've already stripped off the rubber insulation. Now, I'll try soldering the copper wires together. Let's see how well they join. Look at that. It's actually sparking. Quite a fiery little show. That means the soldering is really heating up the wires well. Remember to be careful with sparks like that, especially if you're working with flammable materials nearby. But overall, it shows our homemade soldering setup is doing its job. The copper wires of the two cables have melted and fused together. This shows that our solder joint is very strong, ensuring a good and durable electrical connection. So there you have it. I've just built my very own super cool soldering iron, haven't I? Here at Hack and Craft, we truly believe that with a little creativity, you can make anything you set your mind to. Why not give it a try yourself and share your creation with me? Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell so you won't miss any of our exciting tips and tricks coming up. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.